Okay, well, welcome everybody. I have 4 o'clock on this wonderful Thursday. I'm not sure what it's like in your neck of the woods in Wyoming, but here in Cheyenne, it has been an exceptionally beautiful day. The sun has been out, very little wind, and so I feel like I have a lot to be grateful for today. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. This last session. Um, is, as we said, maintaining a healthy balance for success. And so as we go through this today, I just want to give some final reminders. Make sure that you put any questions that you have in the Q&A. I do have Jennifer Duncan on today supporting from WDE to help watch that. I'm not sure if we'll have time to answer those in the session, but I will definitely try my best. And if not, you can always email me. Um, as we've said before, these sessions are recorded and they will all be at the Wyoming Instructional Network in that same link that you've been receiving. They're all there. And so this final one will be there as soon as it's available. And at the end of this one, there will be that participation form. And this one is really important because this one's going to be a little bit different for you. You will go through some of the same questions that you've had in the other ones, and you'll make sure that you fill them out completely. If you are seeking credit for PTSB or STARS, there is going to be an area, and it's required on there, so you can't pass by it. If you don't have anything, just put NA and it'll be fine, or no. And then, but if you are seeking PTSB or STARS, be sure that you put your PTSB number without any dashes or your social security number without any dashes, so that we can submit that for you. And then your STARS credit, same kind of thing. Make sure your email or whatever other identifying number or anything that you have so that we can get that submitted for you. It becomes really cumbersome and you may not get credit if we don't have it in that form. So make sure that you get that filled out correctly. Again, Jennifer and I are always available for questions if you are unsure what to do with that. Okay, so before we jump into the objectives, I just want to start out by prefacing this presentation by stating I am not a licensed social worker, nor am I a licensed therapist, but I am, however, aware that as a former paraprofessional and teacher, that educators are often incredibly compassionate people and selfless who dedicate their time, their energy, and expertise to help others grow, learn, and succeed. And many times in doing this, we tend to neglect ourselves. So today, whether you're a teacher, paraprofessional, administrator, director, or another type of support for our students, I just really want you to know how valuable you are to not only your students, but to their families and to all of us. During this presentation, if at any time some of this feels a little triggering, just take a break. But I'm hoping that most of the content you may have at least been exposed to, or you may know a lot about. I'm not sure, but wherever you are in this content area today, I hope that you'll take something away and just take a pause to be able to look at yourselves and see where maybe you can take something away from today's presentation. So our objectives today, we're going to identify those areas of self-care to support a healthy work-life balance. Many times, as we know, that's usually not in balance. And then we're going to do a fun activity a little later about personality types. We're going to look at that. Remember when we did that first, I asked you to define your why you're in your role. We're going to revisit that just for a moment during this presentation. And then finally, we're going to hopefully develop some sort of a self-care plan and maintenance. And so with no further ado, let's get rolling here. So in the Q&A or the chat, whichever way you can do it, how are you feeling today? Take a look at these 8 different dogs on here. I love dogs, so that's why I picked dogs. There's many other charts I'm sure you've seen, but how are you feeling today? throw that into the chat or turn to your neighbor if it's not working. At least let's see how we feel today. The emojis are working good too. So however we want to do that. Um, Today I'm feeling a little, it's kind of bittersweet for me because we're at the end, right? Of these training sessions, but I've really enjoyed being here with you, even virtually. Even though I can't see your faces, I do feel your spirit. So I hope that 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 you've enjoyed these as well. All right. So let's just take a quick look at this photo. How many of you feel any of these things during the course of a day, a week? Maybe you felt them today. Whether it's stress, health, work, our minds are often really distracted. And I want you to just take a second and think, how many times do you think our students feel some of these same emotions? How many of those students who have major behavior issues do you think feel some of these emotions? And what do we do? Do we just tell them to calm down, to take a breath? Do we even do that ourselves when we're feeling this way? And do we model those things to our students when they're feeling that way? This video, I want to talk just a little bit about what you're going to see here. You've probably already seen some of this. As educators, when we're teaching any of this type of trauma care, when we are trying to help our students, many times we talk about the brain. And this is a hand model that Dr. Daniel Siegel had come up with many years ago. He's got a wonderful book out, and much research is out there to talk about all of these different things. But so this is just a very short snippet, but I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and then I'll show you a short little, we'll talk a little bit more about it. So here we go. Jennifer, if you'll let me know if something's wrong with this video and we can't hear, I'll pause.
It started with a simple but effective idea, a way to visualize our rising emotions and help restore our calm, keeping our cool when flipping our lids. It's a hand model of the brainchild of Dr. Daniel Siegel, and here's how it works. Put your thumb in the middle of your palm and curl your fingers over the top. Now you have a model of the brain. Lift your fingers up and raise your thumb. That's the inner brainstem represented by your palm and wrist. The brainstem controls basic body functions like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. Put your thumb back down. That's the approximate location of the limbic area, most notably the amygdala, which helps to regulate emotions and our fight, flight, freeze response. Now, curl your fingers back over the top, and your prefrontal cortex, which allows us to think critically, predict consequences, control impulses, and do other executive functions, is in place. The frontmost part of the brain helps us rationally manage the amygdala and brainstem areas. But when our emotions start to rise, maybe someone's pushed your last button, or you perceive a threat or danger, our amygdala overrides the prefrontal area and we can flip our lids, losing our cool and acting in ways that can be scary to others. By visualizing our lid flipping and noticing when our emotions are rising, we can take a break or a deep breath and work to calm ourselves, giving our brainstem a chance to regulate our body and allowing us to actually change what the brain does and return to the clearer thinking of the prefrontal cortex. That's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and as a learning tool for our children.
Okay. So I'm sure many of you have seen that type of hand model. This is just a visual, actually from Dr. Siegel's book, and it's titled the book is titled Mindsight: The New Science of Personal Transformation. We can learn a whole lot when we learn to detect when our lid is flipping, when it's about to happen, and how to avoid it how we can avoid it to happen eventually with practice. And so we can learn all those skills to reduce the duration if they do occur. The bottom of this page, it also has a link that has a small little excerpt to his book, as well as a video of Dr. Siegel himself explaining the hand model. I love this. The amygdala there and the limbic system, you know, a lot of times you may hear this referred to as our lizard brain because it's the flight, fight, or freeze. And we need that, right? When things are going on, we need that. But there are many times that it hijacks our prefrontal cortex, which does not allow us to really reason much anymore. And we see this a lot, not only in children, but in ourselves. And so the more we start to recognize and realize these things, the more we can start to make a change and help ourselves, and then we can help our kids along the way. So when we talk about, why are we talking about all this? We know we have stress. We know we have many different things going on in our lives, in our careers, and in our students' lives, you know, and their families. And so, but today I want to talk about you. I want you to take a step back. We're not just talking about just your students. I want to talk about you. Do you have a healthy work-life balance? Because I know we have moments when our amygdala gets hijacked, and it not only affects us, but it affects potentially everybody around us. So how can having a healthy work-life balance help that? And not only that, but how do we get there? Maybe you already have it. Maybe you have it all figured out. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm still learning. I'm still growing every day in this area. And so I felt really passionate that's why I wanted to end these sessions on this topic today. So back when, like I said, that very first thing, remember your why. Do you remember what you wrote down? If you did write it down? If you didn't, take a quick second and write it down. What is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing today in your role? Why are you doing it? It may be, like we said, finances. It may be because you just want to help children. It may be because you're at a point in your life where you just needed something to do. I'm not sure what it is. But remember your why, because I want you to have that in the back of your mind as we go through some of these next slides. Um, I love this visual. I was recently on a flight to Orlando and back. And of course, as we all are on flights, many times we see this, right? And the flight attendants go through this. And I love this. This person said, she's the finder of mindful teachers, and her name is Catherine Haney. And she says, I doubt this is the first time that you've heard you should put on your own oxygen mask first. In fact, you've likely heard this advice so many times, it doesn't even sink in anymore. But that's unfortunate because it is such a powerful metaphor. On a flight, the first person to put on an oxygen mask is the pilot. There's nothing selfish about this. If the pilot loses consciousness, guess what? The plane's going to crash. And any loss of pressurization could quickly lead to the incapacitation of the crew and, of course, the passengers. And we know what could happen from there, right? If you're responsible for other people, again, as we said, a teacher, a paraprofessional, any kind of caregiver, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself first. It's not selfish. It's not self-indulgence. It's just good advice to do it, because otherwise we're not going to be any good helping anybody else around us. And as we know, those who usually ignore taking care of themselves are generally those who get cynical, they get burned out, and they drag down the morale of the rest of the staff, and of course become less effective, not only for themselves, but for their students, for their colleagues. And so this is definitely, it's not an option, as it says, it's a necessity. So let's take a look at self-care. Why are we going to even talk about self-care? As I've done more and more research, I've realized just how important it is. You can see here it can reduce and or even eliminate anxiety and depression, stress. It can improve your concentration, even your energy, and of course, all of the many things when we talk about heart disease, stroke, cancer, all of those things can be at least lessened, right? So again, why practice this? We're going to go over a few things here. You see 10 different things. It does prevent burnout. As we said, I won't go too far into that part because we've talked about that a little bit. That emotional resilience, it helps in managing classroom behavior, supporting not only our emotional needs, but our students' emotional needs. It definitely helps calm and helps us to increase our patience. I mean, this probably goes without saying. If all those things are happening, hello, I guess it could also improve our job satisfaction. If we're unhappy, are we looking at some of those areas, to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves? And we're going to talk a little more about that. There are outside factors that come in, but again, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves in that role. Modeling healthy habits, whether it's eating, emotional, social, all those different things. We need to make sure that we're maintaining those healthy habits. Definitely increases effectiveness in the classroom, supports long-term professional growth. The happier we are in our job, we're going to want to stay, and we're going to want to continue to support and help others, right? If we are figuring it out for ourselves. It definitely promotes that work-life balance. The physical health benefits are very clear. There are many, many studies out there from the Mayo Clinic, from many psychologists, how many benefits that it does do, or that it creates. And eventually, positive school culture has definitely been seen to rise when others are starting to do this for themselves, because it catches on. People want to know, wow, how are you handling all this stress? How are you doing these things? And it will catch on. Supports emotional and mental health. And so, as you see, it's not just a luxury for you guys, for any educator. It is a vital part of sustaining a long and fulfilling career in teaching, or as your role as a paraprofessional, or any support person who are working with our kids. So today we're going to talk a little bit. There are many, many. If you look up self-care, you're going to find a lot of different things. You may see different pillars that they call them out there, for all these different parts of self-care. But as I started researching, these were the typical 7 that I found that were the most common. And so we're going to talk about these 7 today: the physical, mental and emotional, social, spiritual, environmental, recreational, and then reflecting and maintaining. I do want to point out, as you see at the bottom of this slide, I want you to be aware that self-care looks different for everyone. So it is not a one size fits all. There are going to be parts that you're like, well, I feel like I have this part pretty good, right? I maybe could improve a little bit, but as we go through here, I want you to just start breaking down some of these and taking a look to see if there are any parts that you feel like maybe you could make some improvement in that area. So that first one, of course, is physical. Some of these are intuitive, right? We know we need regular health checkups. We know we need to make exercise a priority. We hear this often. And that could mean many different things for many different people, depending on your abilities and where you are in your life. The one thing that I will say, that more and more, the studies are coming out to show that getting outdoors as much as possible is really making a difference, even if it's for a short time. As much as 10 minutes outside, and just having that natural vitamin D, being outside, breathing the air. Especially in Wyoming, we're so fortunate. Our air is pretty darn clean here most of the time. And so I feel like, even if it's cold, get out, bundle up, get out for a few minutes if you can. Amy Reyes at our department here, she started an initiative, Get Wild Wyoming, and these preschool children are now doing many activities outside. They're doing a lot of outdoor learning, and it's just really catching on and sparking a lot of different things. I know when I was teaching, I loved every second I could get my students outside. Even if we were doing different activities, I found ways to get us outside. I think it made a big difference for them too. Of course, sleep is huge. When we are deprived of sleep, and I'm sure many of you have been, as I have, with different things going on in our lives, we just have to prioritize it though and find ways to make sure we're getting a good night's rest. Water, of course, is huge. Dehydration, they have now, studies are more and more are also coming out about the effects of dehydration on our body. And extreme dehydration can cause major problems in not just our physical health, our mental health, our brain activity. There's so many things. We have to have water. And then practice mindfulness. We're going to talk a little more about that. So taking time to breathe and be present. We're going to get into that one a little bit more. So I know you've probably heard it, but what is it? It's actually just the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. Meaning, we're not judging what's going on. We are just looking at the facts of what's going on around us. We are being present and actually just taking a look at what is going on. So take a quick look at this picture. Is your mind full, or do you feel like you're actually mindful? Look at the difference. Where do you feel like you are? Just put a 1 or a 2, or you could do a thumbs up if you feel like you're pretty good at being mindful. Or if you feel like, man, my mind is just full all the time, try a different emoji. I'm seeing some thumbs up, so good job. It's hard to do sometimes, especially in our very fast-paced world. So we're going to take a quick look at some of those benefits of being mindful. I won't go through them all because I'll let you go back through here and read through here because we've got an activity that's going to take us a little bit. But I want you to take a look at some of those things. Not just does it calm our brain, it actually can boost working memory. They've actually seen that it has made improvements in those who are starting to experience dementia. There's so many things. Of course, we've seen that it can help reduce stress and anxiety, but even just our whole body image and self-esteem, and just all of those things, and even help us to be kinder and more compassionate towards other people. And you can see this sentence at the end, but it says several pilot studies have shown that those who regularly practice mindfulness have an increase in their overall job satisfaction. So, of course, this is why I'm bringing this forward to you today, because I want all of you to be happy in your jobs. We want you there. We want you. We need you to help support our students. And we want you to be happy in what you're doing. So, part of mindfulness is learning how to breathe. And there are so many different breathing techniques, many different breathing techniques. But today we're going to do just this quick one. This one is called the 4-7-8. And there's different ones. There's box breathing. There's all kind of, just deep diaphragm breathing. This one is you're just going to take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. You're going to hold for 7 seconds, and then you're going to exhale for 8 seconds and try to blow all that air out. So we're going to try this really quickly. Here we go. How many of you felt like that 7 seconds holding it felt really long? I felt, I remember the first time when I tried that, I'm like, oh my goodness. When you breathe in, you take this big deep breath, it feels kind of hard to hold it, but it really is effective in helping to calm our bodies down, and really start sending signals to that brain to calm down. And of course, if you can do that for a full minute, it really is helpful. Again, you can look up many different techniques for breathing, but that is a quick one that you can do anywhere, right? So um, let's take a look at number 2. That first one we looked at was physical. This one is mental and emotional. The one big thing I want to point out right here, and I put a picture on here just to remind you, we need to set boundaries in all of these areas, really. But when we come to our mental and emotional self-care, sometimes we don't always set boundaries. It's easier when we have physical things that are going on and they are blaring at us. But our mental and emotional health, sometimes we don't set those boundaries very well. But some of these things that you're going to see here, you're going to see some maybe ideas for you. But as you go through this, I just really want you to take a look at, pick some of these that you maybe don't do very often, or maybe that you've started, but you want to keep going. My hope is that each one of these areas, that eventually you will find something in every area that you will continue to improve on to just help your overall self-care. But as we go through these, hopefully you'll pick one that you're going to be able to come up with by the end of this session. The mental self-care involves your psychological and cognitive thinking and your mind's ability to understand and process information and experience. And so this stimulates the mind and improves brain functionality, but it also helps you to develop a really good growth mindset. And so, and as we move into emotional self-care, of course, as we know, it involves our feelings and learning to understand yourself and your emotions better. And as we do that, when we go through and we start thinking about setting those boundaries, I want to just really point out, and this is also in a later slide, but know that your job is not your identity. It's also important to learn when and how to say no. I'm not telling you to go around saying no to everything. I'm just saying, know when it's appropriate to say no. It's okay. And we're going to talk a little bit later about setting social media limits, and then continuing to assess and make changes as needed. I put this on because I hear this and I experience this as a paraprofessional, as a teacher, as a mom, as grandmother, all these things. But we really need to try to figure out a way to save the drama for the stage, leave it there. Because as we know, anytime we let negativity sink in or the drama sink in, it just seems to spread. And so, it can become really detrimental. Some of these ways that we can start supporting our mental and emotional health, when we have gratitude, it's amazing. There's so many times that I know we think, oh, I'm so grateful for this, I'm so grateful for that. But how many times do we take a second to just write down what we're grateful for? Have you ever tried that? Have you ever done like a gratitude journal, or even in your normal journal, just writing down what you're grateful for? Take a second. I hope that today you're going to take a second and write just one thing that you're grateful for, both personally and professionally. Personally today, I was so grateful for this beautiful weather. I came from Georgia. I think I've told you this before, but when I have beautiful days like today, it just really it boosts my mood. I am so excited to get outside and just breathe in that nice, beautiful, clean air, and it just makes me feel happy. So, and even when it is really windy days, I have to turn that around and say, well, okay, at least this wind is giving us really clean air, right? Because growing up in, I grew up 20 miles south of Atlanta. And so there were days that our air quality was so bad we couldn't really go outside. It wasn't advised. And so, I'm grateful for that wind on those windy days to get all of that smog and all of the pollutants out of our air so we can breathe a little better. So take some time to jot down a few things or start a gratitude journal. I love this quote. I love quotes. I love, those kind of things. I love to post them places to remind me. Be sure to give yourself credit for anything that you've overcome. You're so much stronger than you realize. And affirmations are a part of that. I know that it may seem crazy. I remember my husband has been in sales for many, many years of our marriage, and he was always in reading these self-help books and sales books. And part of that, he would talk about affirmations. And, I remember, I don't know if anybody knows Zig Ziglar, but he was one of the big ones back in the day. And I remember him saying, look in the mirror every day and say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And I thought, that is the craziest thing. I'm not going to do that. And I remember my husband said, just try it for 3 days and see how you feel. And of course, I was like giggling through the whole thing because it seemed silly. But after a while, I'm not saying you have to say that one, but find something that you can continue to put that positive self-talk into you, because it seems like we are prone to that negative self-talk. We're prone to having, this anxiety and stress pushed against us. So the more you can do some of these things, affirmations are just positive, empowering statements that repeat to challenge that negative or self-limiting belief to get out, right? It's going to help boost our self-confidence. And so as silly as it might sound, it does work. It's been proven. So, if there's one that you like or write your own, try it. It may help you. This one again is one that I just fell in love with when I saw this. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And just because we did it once doesn't mean we always have to do it, right? Once we know better, we should choose better, as we know. This is another trap that we typically fall into. The should have, could have, would have. Like you're constantly thinking, oh man, if I hadn't done this, maybe that wouldn't have happened, or maybe if I should have done that, and then I mean, we're constantly living in that. But what happens is then we're pulling ourselves back into that past, and we're pulling ourselves down into a state of, it's again that self-negative talk. And so instead of focusing on what might be different, if only, maybe we should turn it around and take time to learn the lesson, right? What can I take away from this lesson to make a change for my future, and to see what lesson needs to be learned? Many times our challenges are what help us grow. Number 3 is social. So take a second and think, what does quality time mean to you? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Is it just yourself? Does it include your family, your friends, your pets? As we look at social, there's so many different pieces to this, and especially when we're in a workplace. And so we're looking at forming healthy relationships, of course, learning to resolve conflict. That happens in every place we are, whether it's families, whether it's at school, other jobs, with our students, with our colleagues, but we need to find time to connect with those people who mean the most to us. And again, set those healthy boundaries. It's okay to set boundaries. If someone is just such a toxic person, it's okay to set boundaries. I'm not saying never ever look at them again or do anything horrible to them. I'm just saying it's okay to set those boundaries and take them as you have to, or maybe just be that good example. Who knows? Maybe they're having some horrible time and you don't even know, and you may be an influence on them. And I love this one because when's the last time you wrote a letter? And I don't mean text. I mean, actually physically wrote a letter. My mama is 84 years old right now, and she tells me all the time, I love to get mail. Just so, one of the last times my grandkids were here for Sunday dinner, we all sat down and wrote her a physical letter and had them draw pictures. And I mean, she's still talking about it. And so I need to do it again, because it makes it, you never know what that can do to somebody. And then they have it to go back and look at and save. And so I think it can make a difference, or give them a call instead of just a text. This part comes from, like, in our workplace, make sure that we are willing to embrace challenge and feedback. If we're not willing to accept that constructive criticism, we're not going to grow. So make sure that we're open to new ideas, and to, of course, offer our ideas as well, but also to be willing to accept others. All right, we're going to take a break here in just a little bit, but I want to get through this section. Take a look at what's going on here. Does this scene look familiar to anybody? How many times have you actually been out to dinner and you notice a couple or a family sitting together? They're all there together, but they're disconnected. They're not even talking. They're not even looking at each other, right? And in today's world, it is so easy for us to get sucked into technology, because it's amazing. Our technology today is amazing. I mean, in one split second, I can think, what would I want to find? What research, which, some of what I did for this presentation, looking up some of this research, and it was at my fingertips in seconds. But it can also be a curse if we let it. One quote that I saw just recently was, does anybody have plans to stare at their phones somewhere exciting this weekend? And I thought, like, I need to post that when my family comes over for Sunday dinner, because, like, I've been guilty of it too. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it, but I think we really need to take some, notice of when we're doing this. Are we putting them away? I love, I had a friend of mine say, there's no way. I have a basket over, and before the dinner table, we put our phones in this basket, and it's off limits until, dinner's over, so that we can actually have a conversation. Our children today are not learning how to communicate as well, right? And the instant gratification that they're getting by, having something on an iPad or something they can just click and have instantly, studies are showing that the effects of that are not great. And so we need to make sure that we are limiting not just our children, but ourselves on that time. So with that, we need to make sure we're unplugging. It is the only way, when we unplug from that and we literally take moments to just relax and unplug, it does recharge not just our bodies, but our minds. And this is just a few just different things. Brendan Bouchard had, how to unplug. How do I do that? And this is a hard one for me. There are times I'm lying in bed, my phone, I have email on my phone, which is not always great. But he says, don't even check your email the first hour, which means I have to get up earlier, right? Because I need to make sure that's usually the first thing I have to check for my work. But then making sure we don't even have TV or anything, looking at the web, 90 minutes before bed. Studies are showing that our brains, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, many times it's because we're doing those things. And all of those things are keeping our brains just moving at Mach speeds and not allowing us to go to sleep. Taking a walk without your phone, I love to go take a walk at the park, and I usually, and I'll admit, I have my earphones in, usually listening to a podcast or music or something. And then sometimes I can tell you there's a big difference when I say, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to walk and just, without any of the technology. And it does feel different. And so I'm not saying you have to do that every time, but maybe take some times and, do a little different. So we're actually going to go ahead right now and take a quick break, because we're going to come back. I need you to make sure you have some paper or something that you can write on and write with, whether it's a sticky note, whether it's a piece of paper, you can draw lines. I'm going to go ahead and show you this next slide so that you can have this done, and then we'll come back and start this. I'll need you to have four columns like this and 6 rows down. And so if you can go ahead and grab that during the break, we'll come back at 4:45. Actually, I'll leave this up so you can see what it might look like. Okay, well, welcome back from your break. I hope you've had a chance to grab some paper. If not, again, all of this will be in the slides, so you can take it later if you don't have a chance to take it today. It's just kind of fun to go through. I do want to preface this test to also tell you that there are many different true like color personality tests. Maybe you've taken something like this in the past. There are many different ones to even, you'll see people like tweaking these a little bit and even how you answer or maybe questions that you have differently. This one was the True Colors Personality Test, and it's just a valuable tool. It's actually developed by Don Lowry. He was a student of Kersey, which was based heavily on the work from Myers and Briggs and Kersey, which were psychology personality tests. This tool has actually really been proven to improve work relationships by helping individuals to better understand themselves and others, and which helps to further their communication, collaboration, and just their overall team dynamics. And so I do want to tell you that this one assigns people 4 different colors: blue, gold, green, and orange. And each color represents distinct traits, preferences, and approaches to our work. And so if you had a chance to go ahead and get your sheet filled out this way, this is going to be important. If not, just at least write an age, write down straight down your sheet, and it'll be fine. So as you go through this, this is not a diagnostic tool. It's not a personality disorder assessment. It's only meant to be a framework for understanding our personal preferences and tendencies, communication styles, things like that. It is not a psychological diagnosis. So the other thing I want to tell you is don't be surprised if when you score yourself that you find yourself maybe floating through a few colors. That's normal. But typically, most people have like more of a color than another, and it's really interesting when you start seeing how this goes. Today, I want you to just look at what you score the highest. Every once in a while, we've had people tie, which is okay, but think about what you would probably be the most. So as you look at these, I don't want you to analyze every single word. I just want you to look at them quickly. You're going to go through row 1 and score them. 1 is least and 4 is most. And you'll see, 2 is somewhat, 3 is a lot, but 1 is the least, 4 is the most. And then as you go through A through D, just put those scores quickly. And again, look through all of the words in that box. And if you feel like all those words in box A describe you more than B, C, or D, score that, however fitting. Give each box a score 1 through 4. I'm going to give you just a minute or so to go through that because I don't want you to totally analyze. Just do it quickly. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? As you get finished, if you'll go ahead with rows 1 and 2, if you're done, start giving me some thumbs up and we'll move on. All right, I've seen a lot of thumbs up going up there, and there's some more. They're starting to slow down, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next few rows. Everybody ready? Same thing. This time you're going to go through 3 through 5. Just do the same thing. I'm starting to see some thumbs up. Again, just give me your thumbs up when you've completed this part. Perfect. I'm going to move on so that we can get these scored and continue through this presentation. At the end, if you need me to go back, I can certainly go back to slides if you need me to and capture it. Or again, like I said, they'll be in the slides for you to go back and score later. So now what you need to do, down at the bottom, you're going to score in the orange for orange, and you'll see on the sheet that I provided for you, to draw out for yourself. And even if not, go ahead and score if the box is A, H, K, N is in Nancy, S is in Sam, A, Alpha, Henry, Kappa, Nancy, and Sam. Score all those boxes, put your total score there, and do the same thing for the green. You'll see D, E, L, P, Q. The blue is C is in Charlie, Frank, J, O, R. And then the gold is B as in boy, G as in George, I, M as in Mary, T as in Tom. So make sure you get all those scored. And you'll see at the bottom of this, it says if you get anything that's less than 5 or greater than 20, you've made a mistake. So go back and look at that again, because each box across those rows should only have 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I'll give you a few minutes to score this. Looks like a chunk of you are done scoring. So I'm just going to go ahead, again, just keep scoring if you're not finished. But I want to show you some things. So how many of you were predominantly gold? Give me like the celebration thing, maybe something different if you were gold. Oh, I'm seeing some golds. I'm not surprised, because let's take a look. Golds are dutiful and stable. They want to be self-sufficient. They value organization. A lot of teachers are, right? They're goal-oriented. They value rules. You can keep reading these later. What about the blues? Let's get a different emoji. Maybe the smiley face if you were blues. Or there you go. Can do the crying face or the laughing face. Blues tend to be like compassionate. They want to be true to themselves. They definitely value quality time with loved ones. They need harmony. They're drawn to nurturing careers. So again, not surprised that I'm seeing some blues. What about green? Somebody chose a heart for green, or anyone. Yeah, there you go. Got some greens in there. Our greens are more logical. They want to understand the world. They want to be competent. They're curious. There's a little more slow to make decisions. They're not as emotional that way. They're sometimes they believe work is play because they like working, and they focus on the future. You'll notice at the ends of some of these, I like that greens bring innovation to society. What about orange? How many oranges do we have? I'm not seeing any emojis. Oh, there's maybe an orange. So the oranges are, I'm seeing some more come now. They're a little more free and spontaneous. They're a little more impulsive risk takers. Um, there's definitely, they deal with the here and now. They're bold in relationships. They love to live life, right? And so they bring that excitement to society. I want to take a look at this one, and I won't go through all of this for time, but I want you to just take a look at this, at like reframing, like others may perceive blue as very emotional or overly sensitive, but they may see themselves as just being compassionate, romantic, idealistic, empathetic. Isn't it interesting how we view each other? The gold, others may perceive them as being rigid and inflexible, but they see themselves as being consistent. Green, they might be perceived as being arrogant or a know-it-all or cold or hard or more insensitive, but they see themselves as just being confident and mentally tough or strong, logical. And orange, others may perceive them as goofing off too much, untrustworthy, scattered, but they may see themselves as open to change or having many interests, able to do many things, fun loving, and enjoying life. And so you can see how just taking a look at some of this, seeing where we are, but then taking a moment to take a look and understand and value differences in each other. Okay. So we're going to quickly go through some of these. When we understand our own personality type, then we can start learning how many of you can already see and maybe guess what some of your colleagues are, what color they are, or some of your students, or some of your family members. Sometimes it's pretty blatant, isn't it? Like sometimes we can see it better than they can see it themselves. But when we do this and we learn to understand maybe why our personalities, why we tend to do or think a certain way, and maybe why another person tends to think a certain way, doesn't make anybody wrong, right? It's just a different perspective. And so when we learn to understand and value those differences, that's where good change happens. It can enhance our communication, the collaboration, and so there's just so many different things. It definitely can help with conflict resolution when we stop and take a breath and say, okay, I already know that this person tends to think this way. And so we can have a little more understanding. So we're going to take just a quick look at some of these. When we look at our own, of course, we learn to look at ourselves. I love some of these examples that they had, because it's like, if you're blue, you might value empathy and focus on emotional support. But recognizing that, you might be mindful of managing those emotional boundaries, right? And expressing them maybe a little too much sometimes. What about when we start looking at our colleagues and understanding them a little more? When we know that a gold person prefers structure and organization, while a green person might value logic and independence, we can start to look at and approach them a little differently to be more effective. And so enhancing communication, we can start to see these trends, right? We know, like, if we can start seeing these things, and I'm not saying they're all, perfectly 100, they're not rigid. A lot of times they're fluid. We move through some of these colors sometimes at different times, and maybe some depending on the experiences we have in our lives. It's just a framework and a tool. It's not a diagnosis or anything that we can like say, oh, you're this, so you have to be this or that. It's not about that. It's just kind of a good way to reflect and take a look at maybe why we do things we think differently. And then you've got the difference between not just personalities, but genders and, different things that we have going on that we think differently as well. Improving the team collaboration. A blue, I'm more blue. I have some other colors going on, but I'm definitely more blue. I'd love to make sure their voice is heard, and I want to make sure everybody is okay. And, that's kind of my MO. And so, but when I start seeing some of these things, I like organization, I like structure. And so, we can start seeing some of these things that doesn't mean you can't be some of those other things, right? But as a team, when we're trying to collaborate, it really does help. And if nothing else, have a little more compassion, a little more patience, and maybe take a minute to learn a different perspective from somebody else. This one is about adapting leadership style. And, you may not be in a leadership role, but you are a leader to those students who you're teaching and you're supporting. Whether you're, like I said, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a para, you're still supporting these students, and they do look to you. And so when we start looking at not only our own style of dealing with things, but maybe how they are as well, like maybe that's why, if you're a blue and you're just trying to be compassionate all the time, and you've got some of these others who are a little more, I don't get into that as much, that can trigger them, right? And so we've got to be mindful of those things of, are we, like, again, poking that bear? What are we doing? What are our personality styles? Could it be triggering others and setting them off when we had no intention to? Again, conflict resolution. When we start recognizing those differences and we choose the best approach to resolve the situation, this takes a lot on our part too, to take a deep look at ourselves and to step back and pause and reflect and say, what's my part in this? Where can I help to resolve this conflict? And again, it could be with a colleague, it could be with an administrator, it could be with our students, it could be in our home lives. Whatever it is, there's so many different things. When we start recognizing patterns, it's so much easier for us to then take a look and see what do I need to do to help facilitate that, to move towards resolution. And then increasing our emotional intelligence, of course, that stands to reason, right? The more that we're doing that and we're better communicating and we're aligning with our own emotional needs and those of others, it's going to increase our emotional intelligence. It's going to reduce our anxiety, our stresses when we learn to do these things. And I'm not saying it's easy. It takes time. It takes practice. But it's definitely an important piece. We're human beings and we're all different. But the more that we can learn to understand each other and value differences, and I'm certainly not saying this is the only way to do it. I'm just saying I thought it was a fun framework for us to take a look at and just see, and maybe start thinking about, maybe it'll, start a different thinking process for you to do a little more of your own research into maybe some other things that could be helpful. And then, of course, creating that supportive work environment again. When we feel respected, when we feel heard, it makes all the difference in the world, right? Um, I've been on many different leadership committees when I was teaching. And you know, you go through some of these things and this process, even like a mediation process, right? Like there's so many different parts that when we take time to not just care about ourselves, but care about others and value their opinions and try to look at it from their perspective, it's definitely going to create a much better work environment for us. So number 4 on that list, I know we dove into that personality little assessment for a minute, but spiritual is one of those parts of self-care that we need to look at. And I'm not going to get too far in this. This is a very personal part for everyone. And so however you look at spiritual, you know, you take that but it's really about silencing out that outside noise and finding that inner peace and calm, right? And however you do that, I think, you know, we need to make sure that we don't overlook this piece of our self-care. Environmental. We can't always control all the aspects of our environment, but there are some things we can, you know. I know when I was teaching in the classroom and I had some of my kiddos, they could not stand the overhead lights. Like all of a sudden, I can't remember what they're called, not the LED, but anyway, the ones that start buzzing and you know, they're just not very good. Even you know, a lot of times it would give me headaches too. And so we ordered some of those blue covers, you know, to cover that, to diffuse some of that lighting. So making sure that we're setting a calm mood. The environment can mean a lot of different things. You know, if you walk into a classroom and it's very cluttered and disorganized, and we don't have good pathways for our students to move in and out, that can cause a lot of chaos, right? It can cause, and there's a lot of times that we're not even being compliant with their IEPs for them to be able to move around and to access their environment. And then music. For me, music is a huge, huge piece of my environment. I can definitely be having a bad day and I can come in and just turn on some nice calm music, and I can feel my body start to calm down. And so environment is huge. Definitely don't overlook this piece. There's a part on there that says make your bed every morning, and we're going to move into that. I don't know how many of you have ever heard this. There's actually a book too. This is from the retired U.S. Navy Admiral William H. McRaven. He has a book out and it's called Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. I love it. There's like 10 lessons. I've seen little excerpts, but I ordered this book just recently and I'm waiting for it to come from Amazon because I love things like this. But when he was training as a Navy SEAL, he actually had 10 lessons that he started writing down of what he felt like made a difference in his life. And this video clip that you're going to see is actually from a commencement speech that he gave to the graduating class of 2014 at the University of Texas at Austin, which was actually his alma mater. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this quick little video. I love it.
Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
Okay. I know that it may sound silly, but I don't know how many of you agree with that. But I know for myself, if there's ever a day that I'm like in so much of a hurry that I didn't make my bed and I come back, it makes me like, I don't know, it gives me like just a little sense of anxiety, like, oh gosh, I didn't even get that done. And so for those of you who like lists and checking off lists, man, making your bed seems very simple and and easy to do, right? But it does make a big difference. And if we can start teaching even our students and our children, not necessarily tell them, did you make your bed today? That's their parents. But even at school, what are those little tasks that we can have them do that will make all the difference in the world to help their environment, to help them being a little calmer, to help them be prepared, right? When we look at organization, and again, I could turn these sessions into like a year-long thing, I feel like, because, when we take a look at some of those executive functioning skills, especially in organization, there's so many things I feel like that could be helped if we can just help them improve their executive functioning skills. And that's part of it. Organization is a big piece of that. So let's take a look at recreational. This one I feel like is an easy one to turn to when we start feeling stressed. Immediately our brains are like, what can I do to get out of this situation? What can I do to go take a break? But choosing the right recreational activities, I found, can be just as important as just doing it, right? I mean, definitely just do something, but try something new maybe. Or what are your favorite hobbies? What's something that you can go to, whatever it is? For me, a stress relief is to bake or to cook for myself, my family, my grandchildren. I love it. And so for me, it's a creative outlet. I love doing arts and crafts. I love outdoors. I love getting out and hiking. For some people, these things would be like overwhelming, or they hate it, or whatever, I recently saw this and I thought, I actually love this piece. And it says, go on a rainbow walk. And I thought, what is a rainbow walk? So when I looked it up, it's literally just taking the time to notice the different colors while you're walking. Right now, we see a lot of brown. I came from Georgia, so there was a lot more green, a lot of different colors. But, I have grown to love the colors in Wyoming, and, to really appreciate all the different things. Even there's different shades of brown, right? There's different kind of things out there that we can notice. The important thing is that we're being present in the moment and we're noticing those colors. We're noticing the sounds. We're noticing the different things as we're either walking or driving. Of course, keep your eyes on the road. I'm not telling you to do that, but there's so many things that we notice that we pass over. We pass over so much throughout our day that if we would just stop and pause and take notice, it's amazing what it does to calm our souls, to calm our brains, to calm, our anxiety. And of course, have a day or a moment of pampering yourself, whatever that might look like. This part I put at the bottom, I actually love this quote, and it says, studies show that getting creative through drawing, doodling, painting, or decorating, it interrupts rumination. Rumination is just those negative, horrible, negative thoughts that keep going over and over, looping again in our mind. And so they're repetitive. And doing these kind of things with art can help actually distract and shift your focus and help stop those, which I thought was really interesting. And I know that there are many other ways, but I just thought it was interesting that even so, when our kids are doodling and we are wondering, like, why are you just doodling? Sometimes that's definitely something that is part of self-care to help. How many of you doodle when you're listening to a lecture or you're, you know, watching TV, or, you know, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, you don't want it to be perfect when you're just doing that. You want your mind to just go, and you want to be creative, and let that outlet be there. So take a moment to do those recreational pieces. If you have a pet, I love to go with my dogs and go hiking, my family, you know, and just experience that with others. And then there's sometimes I like to do it alone. I like to just take a moment and breathe and think. And if I want to stop and sit on that rock over there and just look at the water, or whatever, the mountains, whatever I'm near, maybe the trees, the way, you know, man, I haven't seen that kind of tree before, or whatever it is, you know, I think it's really important to do what makes you help with your self-care. This part I definitely want to bring up because it is a huge part of the process. So please don't forget this process. As with any good goal, unless we take time to pause, assess, and determine next steps, those goals tend to what? They either stagnate, they get pushed aside, or they go completely away. And so it's really important that we do not forget this step. Make sure that we're setting realistic goals. Again, today, before you leave, I'm hoping if you do have paper still near you, or a sticky note, or whatever, or a note in your phone, I hope that you'll take a moment and choose one of these self-care segments to what's something that you feel like you would like to improve in your life. And I love this part down here because sometimes, you know, goals can feel overwhelming and daunting. And again, set those realistic goals, take them at little chunks at a time, set them as you can. Don't overdo it for yourself, because that's going to defeat the whole purpose, right? But make sure you forgive yourself and start again. If you're like, oh, I tried this and it just didn't go very well, it's okay. We're all like that. There's not typically, unless something just comes easier for us, you know, we can continue to improve those, of course. But it's usually the ones that are a little harder for us that we tend to shy away from, and like, I'm not very good at that. Maybe pick one of those to just start little tiny pieces to see if you can help. And then always, as needed, make sure you're seeking support. There are many times that self-care involves us seeking help and seeking support, whether it's for our mental, emotional, physical health, whatever it is. Make sure we're seeking support as we need it. That part is really important. Oh, and you know, I have a few kids, some of my adult children. We become our accountability partners, and you know, so at first it sounds amazing until I keep getting those little nagging texts. Did you do it today? Did you exercise today? What did you do today? And I think, you don't want to answer if you didn't do it. But then sometimes it's like, I'm grateful for it because it does push me. I don't want to say I didn't do it. And so it's pushing me in a good way. If it starts pushing you in an unhealthy way, maybe it's not the right accountability partner, right? But find somebody, or partners, or ways that you can make yourself accountable, because it's easy to let those kind of things go. Like I said, we are givers. We want to give to others before we take care of ourselves. And so make a plan for yourself, okay? This video that I'm going to show you now, I just actually stumbled across this and I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect way to end this. This was a video of the 2020 Teachers of the Year. And the question was asked, what are some of the ways that you practice self-care? So just watch.
What are some of the ways that you practice self-care?
I don't. Oh boy.
That's definitely a skill I need to get better at.
Self-care is hard, especially in this profession.
However, my focus has been to get outside more, do more engagement with our environment.
I'm cranking up the tunes in the kitchen. I'm cooking something delicious for my family.
There is more to life than just work, even if you really enjoy your career a lot, like we do.
I don't grade papers at home. I don't check my email very much at home, and I'm a better teacher when I have established healthy boundaries with work and leave work at work.
So one of the ways that I practice self-care is being able to say no. Sometimes you have to be able to take a step back and refresh before going on to that next project.
1-minute meditations. I just close my eyes, take a deep breath, and try not to think too much about what happens. And when I open my eyes, I feel much better.
Try to turn your brain off and let it be quiet sometimes.
Disconnecting from technology and distractions and spending time with the people that I love the most.
Before you assist others with the oxygen mask, assist yourself first. I like to exercise and be with my family, but yeah, assist yourself before assisting others.
I think it's really important to give myself the time to be creative. Even actually really digging in and researching is creative for me.
I play piano in the evenings. I read a book. I try to take time that is both being still and also being active.
Spending time in prayer, practicing yoga, or even spending time outdoors, like going boonie stomping around the jungles of Guam.
Fresh air and movement are key to restoring my sanity and perspective.
I get up before anybody in my family when it's still dark outside, and I go to the gym on some mornings, or I go just sit and have some quiet time to myself.
Or I am going for a walk, or I'm reading a book, or I'm taking a nap on the weekend.
I practice self-care by traveling. Sometimes it's good to get out of our bubble.
My best mode of self-care is to learn from my students. I've learned patience, I've learned empathy, I've learned the latest dance move.
To reach out to other teachers, share experiences, and have somebody to bounce ideas off of. It rejuvenates you and helps you reignite that passion for teaching.
What are some of the ways that
Okay, so at this point, we've gone through a lot today. I know that we try to put so much into an hour and a half. It's crazy how quickly an hour and a half goes for me when we do these. But I want you to just take just a couple of minutes, and I've listed them back here for you again. Was there one that stood out to you as we were going through this? Was there one that you said, you know what, like I'm pretty good at some of these, but this one I really want to focus on? Try to pick at least one, not too many, not more than two. If you're going to pick more than one, don't pick more than two to start. But just pick one area that you'd like to focus on this next month. What is something that you would like to improve your self-care? So I'm going to give you just a minute or two to write that down. And if you remember any of those, maybe suggestions that went along with some of those, maybe write those down too. And if you're already done and you can think of a good quote or an affirmation that stuck out to you, make some notes while you're doing this. It's amazing that when we do some of these trainings, I know for myself included, we do some of these and then we were like, I can't remember. I mean, you'll have these slides, you'll have the recording, but I think it's really important that in the moment to write down what you're feeling, write down those thoughts that come to your mind. I think it makes a huge difference when, when we go back, definitely go back and revisit some of these things. But I think whatever stood out to you immediately is usually telling you that that might be something that you want to start with. A few more seconds. You guys are all rock stars. Looks like a lot of you've already made up your mind. You've already chosen something. This is an ongoing process, and I want you to know, again, I want to remind you that self-care looks different for everybody. And even like what you choose today, maybe in a month from now, maybe even next week, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I need to go back and work on this one. It is a process. This journey that we call life is something it's always evolving. We're always changing. New experiences come into our lives that, push us to go a different direction at times. And so, as you do this, revisit this often, go back and say, man, where am I? If you're not feeling great about where you are in your self-care, go back and take a look and see, what area do I feel like I need to focus on right now? Again, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate every one of you. I hope you know that you make a difference in those lives of each one of your students. Whether you think you're making a difference or not, you are. They may not realize it at the moment. They may think you're being hard on them, or they may think that, I don't want to do this work, but you're helping them, and you're helping them to grow, not just where they are right now, whether they're in pre-K or they're seniors in high school. It doesn't matter. You make a difference in all the things that you're teaching them. And I just want you to know how appreciative I am, and we all are, of what you do for our students across the state. It's huge, and we're seeing differences being made. I do want to just remind you that the recordings and the materials, you can access all of them. All of them are there now, 1 through 4. Once this recording is ready to go, it will get posted, and the slides will get posted at this link, the Wyoming Instructional Network. And they'll be there. And so you're welcome to, once all of this is over, it will move into the all of the recordings and trainings that we've done in the past. It will move to that next page, but you can just click on that. Once you do that, you're going to see a plethora of all kind of trainings that we've offered. And I haven't counted lately, but I know we're over 60 different kinds of trainings. And some of them are specific to paraprofessionals. And so if you, and other ones that would be beneficial to you, whether you're, a teacher or not, there's going to be things that when you're asked to do in your role, that's going to help you. And so you're welcome to go and look at those at your convenience at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and move into, here's our attendance and participation form for today. And I know that sometimes we've had an issue with doing this. So I'm going to put in the chat a different link. It goes to the same place, but maybe it'll be helpful. That is now in the chat for you. So if you can find the chat, if these are not working, go there. Again, you're going to need to enter, if you're seeking credit, this is only if you're seeking credit. If you're not, just answer no and move through the questions. But you will need to give us those numbers without dashes or any kind of symbols or anything, just the numbers right in a row. It will be so much easier for us to submit that for you. And it does take just a little bit of time, so it won't be done tomorrow. Give us a little bit of time, but we will get all of this submitted for you. And I just want, again, to thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I have so enjoyed being with you. And even though I can't see your faces, again, like I've said, I do feel your spirits. And so thank you. I wish you the best school year. I hope this is the best one yet. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, because I won't get to talk to you before Christmas. And just wish you all well. And thank you again.